If we can please call the meeting to order. This is the Village of Riverside Board of Trustees regular meeting on Monday, October 1st, 2012. It is 7:30 p.m. We are in Riverside Township Hall, room 4, 27 Riverside Road. Welcome. Residents and visitors are welcome to all meetings of the Village Board. Comments and suggestions on any topic are welcome at any regular meeting. Comments may be made during the time identified for public comment on the agenda, or if the comments pertain to an agenda item at the time that item comes up for discussion. Individuals who wish to comment must be recognized by the president and then speak at the podium and should begin by identifying themselves by name and address so that our village clerk can add this information to the meeting minutes. So thank you all for being with us this evening. And for any of you who think my reading glasses particularly compliment me tonight, that's courtesy of Trustee Ballerine. I left the house without any tonight, so thank you, Joe. With that, I will ask our village clerk, Kathy Haley, to please call the roll.
Trustee Sowles. Here. Trustee Reynolds. Here. Trustee Chavez. Here. Trustee Sackey.
Here.
Trustee Ballerine.
Here.
President Gorman.
Here.
And absent tonight is Trustee Sussman. And also present at the meeting, Village Manager Peter Scalera.
Here.
Village Attorneys Lance Molina.
Here.
And Michael Mars.
Thank you. So we have a quorum, so we shall proceed. And first up, I will ask everyone to please rise and join us in the pledge. And I will turn to the beginning of our board table here and ask Trustee Sells to lead us in the pledge. Thank you. Tonight we have no presentations from guests, so we will open up the meeting to anyone who cares to have any public comment at this point. Yes, please.
Richard Ray, 262 Lionel Road. Well, it's been a long venture from your previous board's decision to buy some property for a parking lot to its dedication last week. But there it is. I'm a little disappointed, though. I thought that the decision was made that the fence would be straight and there wouldn't be that bump out in it. Makes it a little awkward, I think, for the village to maintain that little piece of property that's only adjacent to somebody else's property. Can't be reached from public property. And also, I was surprised to find that the fence didn't go all the way to the end of the lot. I thought it was decided that bump out would not occur. You know?
The board did discuss it, and the decision was to leave the bump out in the fence.
Oh, okay. And I honestly believe you should consider adding some money to your capital improvement program to fix that problem and extend the fence to the end of the lot, in my opinion. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Anybody else at this time? Seeing no one, we shall move on with the agenda. First up, reports of village officers, village president's report. First, I just wanted to report to the board and to our residents that the Village of Riverside will be the host to the American Planning Association and one of their sessions at their national conference, which is held from April 13th to the 17th, 2013. The village, in conjunction with Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, the Riverside Historical Commission, and the Frederick Law Olmsted Society, put a proposal to the American Planning Association to use Riverside as one of the sites of their sessions during their national conference. This is an opportunity to bring planners to the Village of Riverside from across the United States. This session it's called an APA, which is American Planning Association Mobile Workshop. And it will be called a Planner's Tour of Riverside. The itinerary will be designed around the train schedule. The conference is being held at the Hyatt, so the train schedule will be consulted. The mobile workshop in the village will be scheduled. They'll come out here. We'll give them a presentation, a lecture, a walking tour around the village, and then they'll go back down to their conference. So it's an opportunity to get these professionals into our village. We'll get some more information in the weeks and months to come. But it's an opportunity to showcase our village to a professional organization. Moving on, I have a report of activities since our last village board meeting. Mr. Ray mentioned the September 19th green infrastructure parking lot ceremony which we held, which was well attended, I might say, so thank you. On September 20th, a Person of the Year dinner was held put on by the Chamber of Commerce and the Lions Club, honoring Mr. Joe Dvorak, a longtime resident and contributor to this community. On September 24th, I attended the West Central Municipal Conference Legislative Committee meeting. At that meeting, we discussed items which may be before the General Assembly in the veto session, as well as put forth our requests to the member communities, of which there are in excess of 40 member communities of the West Central, to put forth legislative proposals that they want the West Central to consider for the spring session. On September 26th, I attended the West Central Municipal Conference quarterly business meeting. At that meeting, we approved the 2012 audit report for the West Central. Had a presentation given to the group by John O'Halloran of the Illinois Department of Transportation, talking about initiatives that will be taking place on the Stevenson Expressway, and also had a presentation from the Villages Summit concerning a bill which is before the legislature concerning disposal of hazardous waste. I also wanted to mention a little bit different here, but I wanted to call attention to it. Every week, every Monday, Trustee Sachi and Trustee Reynolds, along with Village Manager, meets with the Army Corps of Engineers, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the contractor for the Swan Pond and Hoffman Dam project, and they go through their status meeting. It gives an opportunity for the village, for these three gentlemen to influence what is being done, to make sure it is being done in the best interest of the village. There are always opportunities, there are always situations where that negotiation doesn't quite go as you want. And we have at times turned to our state and federal legislators to intervene on our behalf. We've done that a couple of times. When that's necessary, I turn to State Representative Michael Zaleski and State Senator Martin Sandoval this past week, who contacted the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and intervened on our behalf to allow us to come to the most advantageous solution for a particular matter for the Village of Riverside. So my only point in raising this is just to publicly thank Representative Zaleski and Senator Sandoval for stepping up once again for the Village of Riverside. And this morning, I attended the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus quarterly business meeting at the Chicago Public Library, which is quite an interesting venue. We adopted a resolution concerning pension reform and a consensus among about the 75, 80 or so mayors from the northeastern Illinois region who were there, including the mayor of the city of Chicago, to try to implore our General Assembly, when they take on the subject of pension reform, to not just deal with the state's pension reform issues, but pension reform as it deals with local public safety matters. We also talked about the World Business Chicago Initiative for regional cooperation, and the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus adopted a resolution to work with the World Business Chicago on that issue. We had a number of other reports. Had a report from the administrator of the Illinois Gaming Board on the status of the Video Gaming Act, which is now on the verge of being implemented in the state of Illinois. And that concludes my report for this meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to Village Manager Scalera.
Before I touch on the only item I have under my report, I just wanted to get back to Mr. Ray to let him know that we are working on getting quotes to extend the fence all the way to the end of the property line at the request of the neighbor. So it is something that we are working on, and we're hoping to maybe address that yet this year. So just so you know. And then the only other item I have under my report is the event that is scheduled for Sunday, October 7th at 1:30 p.m. And I think I will turn it over to Trustee Sells, since he's worked with the bicycle community to put the event together.
Sunday, October 7th at 1:30. At the train station, we're going to all be meeting to actually have the grand opening of our bicycle routes, the Olmsted route, the Frank Lloyd Wright route, and the John F. Palmer route. We're going to have a number of bicycle groups coming to town. They're going to be represented. We have, of course, the Riverside Cycling Club. Recycling Association is going to be here. We've contacted the Illinois Transit Authority, and the Chicago Cycling Club is also scheduled to come and take a ride through our town. So that's at 1:30. We're going to meet, have a short ribbon cutting ceremony, and then the Riverside Cycling Association is actually going to lead kind of a hybrid tour that kind of combines the three routes into one short route. Then we're going to come back and have some refreshments and all at the train station. So that's at 1:30 this Sunday. So we hope everybody will get on their bikes and come out. And the other thing that we're going to be doing is debuting a Riverside map that has been produced. This map grew out of a cooperation between the Riverside Cycling Association, the Riverside Sustainability Council, and myself. After we designated the routes, we started trying to figure out a way to actually publicize the routes so that people would know more about them. And we originally started talking about doing just a bicycle route map, but as we looked into it more and more, we realized that a general map, a comprehensive map for the village might be of use not only for the bicycling community, but also for groups like the Riverside Historical Commission, the Chamber of Commerce. So working with Greg Gorski, who is the designer extraordinaire for the Chamber of Commerce, we created what's affectionately now known as the Riverside Big Map. And this map has on it all of the landmark homes and buildings in the village. It has all of our civic buildings and facilities, all of our parks, all of our schools, all of our churches. It has points of interest, our historical markers, some little things that maybe people don't know quite as much about that you can go and explore. And then on the back, we actually have a history of our town, a map of how to actually get to our town from neighboring communities, and I'm very proud to say a complete listing of our businesses, the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, this was a real success story. Once we came up with the idea and came to the funding part of it, the first thing we did was we went to the Riverside Historical Museum because we had the opportunity through the Illinois Historical Preservation Agency to get a grant to do the printing for the map. So the Riverside Historical Museum donated $900, which then allowed us to get a 2/3 match from the Illinois Historical Preservation Agency. And then the Chamber of Commerce picked it up from there. They sold advertising to all of their members, and so this map was produced at actually no cost to the taxpayers whatsoever. So it's an exciting thing. Starting this week, they'll be available in all of our businesses. If anybody out there has any suggestions about distribution for the maps, please let us know. They've already been delivered to the zoo. They're in all the bike shops. They're going to be distributed up and down the rail lines. But if anybody has any good ideas about where we might put the maps, please let us know. So come out on Sunday, go for a bike ride, have some refreshments, and get a free map. That's all.
That is all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Sells and Peter. Moving on, Village Attorney's Report. Thank you, Lance. We shall continue on in the agenda. The approval of the consent agenda. For the board's information, item B has been removed from the agenda for some corrections. So on the consent agenda this evening is A, approval of the bills of October 1, 2012. C, approve Village Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes of September 17, 2012. File and review Parks and Recreation Commission meeting minutes of May 21, 2012. And file and review Riverside Historical Commission meeting minutes of August 28, 2012. Does any trustee require any further items to be removed from this agenda? Item B.
I have some corrections for item C. So do we need to remove it and then make the corrections, or can we just make the corrections and then?
You can suggest
the
the corrections, and we can treat it as in here corrected.
The reason B was removed is because it is an executive session item, so it is not read at the public meeting. But no, your item can be, if you can.
It's I believe I'm right about this, but I wanted to ask the board's memory about this. On page 4 of the minutes under Finance, Personnel, and Preservation, with regard to the self-containing breathing apparatus, the minutes note that it was a consensus of the board to leave the item as grant contingent, and it was my memory that we actually decided that we're going to include that amount in the CIP total with the hopes that we will get a grant. But I thought it was the consensus of the board actually to leave it as part of the CIP total.
My recollection is we left it in as was in the budget, which I believe was grant
I
contingent.
thought we did. I thought we took it out and made it.
Let's go to the tape.
Yeah, maybe we should just remove this for this meeting and check into that. And then the other one is on page 5 under Parks and Recreation. It makes the statement, let me find it here. Oh, I'm sorry, under sidewalk replacement. This says that Trustee Sells stated he is in favor of replacing all squares that need to be replaced. That is not accurate. What I said, I was in favor of fixing them. So to the degree that we could saw cut, that should definitely be done. So that would be the other correction I have.
I think prudence dictates we shall remove this item from the consent agenda to allow those two items to be addressed. So that leaves us on the consent agenda items A, D, and E. Hearing nothing further, if we could have a motion and a second for those three items. So a motion by Trustee Shevitz, second by Trustee Reynolds. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Sells. Aye. Trustee Reynolds. Aye. Trustee Shevitz. Aye. Trustee Satchi. Aye. Trustee Ballerini. Aye.
Thank you, and the consent agenda as amended is adopted. Moving on to the reports of board chairpersons. First up, Finance, Personnel, and Preservation, Trustee Satchi.
No report.
Next is Public Works, Transportation, and Utilities, Trustee Sells.
Yes, I have several items tonight. The first is a motion authorizing the village manager to reject all bids for masonry and other repairs to the Riverside train depot. On August 16, 2010, the Village Board of Trustees approved a resolution authorizing entry into a commuter facility improvement grant agreement with the Commuter Rail Division of the Regional Transportation Authority. On October 30, 2010, the village received a grant from the West Suburban Mass Transit District in the amount of $160,000 for masonry work and other repairs to the Riverside train depot. The scope of work for the project included mortar joint repair, removal and reinstallation of windows in the south pavilion, replacement of 6 windows in the north pavilion, painting all wood surfaces, and miscellaneous repairs to brick pavers on the north and south platforms. A mandatory pre-bid meeting was held on September 12, 2012. All bid documents were due on September 25, 2012, at which time the village received 5 bids for the work. The low responsive bid in the amount of $233,000 exceeds the grant amount of $160,000 by $73,000. The true cost of a project is never known until former bids are received. Until then, a project proceeds on the basis of estimates. Metra and BNSF are both involved in this project and have significant influence over project requirements. As a result of the bids coming in higher than the grant amount, staff will be returning to the West Suburban Mass Transit District to request a modification to the grant amount with the hopes that they will provide additional funds to reduce any cost to the village. The next meeting is actually in October, I believe, not November. So I move to authorize the village manager to reject all bids for masonry and other repairs for the Riverside train depot.
Second. So a motion by Trustee Sells and a second by Trustee Shevitz. Is there any discussion on this item?
Yes, the relevant sentence in here, I think, is Metra and BNSF are both involved in the project and have significant influence over project requirements. And I would just ask if Village Manager Scalera could actually explain to us what happened here.
Basically, what happened is our Public Works Director, Ed Bailey, had been working with Metra and BNSF in putting the project scope or the request for proposal scope of work together that was included in the RFP. And 2 days prior to the bid opening, Metra added 2 additional addendums to the grant or work requirements, which had a significant impact on the cost of the project that the contractors provided the bids for. And has led us to the point that we're at where it exceeded the original estimated work amount. And therefore, at the suggestion of President Gorman, we will be returning to the West Suburban Mass Transit District to seek a grant modification that would hopefully allow us to reduce any costs to the village to make the repair necessary to the station and pavilion.
Is there any further comment? If not, we have a motion and a second to reject the bids. Would you please call the roll?
Trustee Sells. Aye. Trustee Reynolds. Aye. Trustee Shevitz. Aye. Trustee Satchey. Aye. Trustee Ballerine.
And that motion is adopted. Next.
Next is a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute a contract in the amount of $29,920 with SKC Construction Incorporated for the 2012 crack sealing program. For a number of years, the Village of Riverside has been advertising for bids in the fall of each year for the installation of 16,000 pounds of rubberized pavement crack sealing. Crack sealing is one of the most effective pavement preservation practices and is most beneficial when applied within 3 to 4 years of initial paving. Crack seal should be applied in the spring or fall when temperatures are cool and the asphalt contracted, which best exposes pavement cracks. Among village streets being considered for the 2012 crack sealing program are Southcote Road, east of Selborne, Kent Road, Olmsted Road, West Quincy Street, West Burlington Street, and South Forbes Road. 2 bids were received on September 25th. The low responsive bid in the amount of $29,920 was received from SKC Construction. The contract term is October 2 through November 30, 2012. Denler, Inc. submitted the bid in the amount of $22,080, but qualified the bid by indicating that the company would perform work in the spring of 2013. So I move to authorize the village manager to execute a contract in the amount of $29,920 with SKC Construction Incorporated for the 2012 crack sealing program.
Second.
So motion by trustee Sells, second by trustee Reynolds. Is there discussion on this item?
I would just like to note for the board's benefit, this will be the last time that we bring a crack sealing program in the fall. In what staff will be looking at moving forward is reaching out to some of our neighboring communities who perform their crack sealing program in the spring and to partner with them so that we can maybe take advantage of an economies of scale and benefit from a larger project that will produce a lower unit cost for each of the municipalities. So in this event, the funds were budgeted for this year, and that is why staff is recommending that we use SKC Construction, even though they were not they were the lowest bid, meeting the dates that were specified in the RFP. And so the other contractor, similar to the situation with the tuck pointing, had provided a lower price, but the work would be completed in the spring, which would be not within the time frame that was provided for under the RFP, and we would not be able to enter into an agreement with that individual because of that reason. So that's for the board's benefit.
So if we have a qualifying bid, we have to award the RFP?
No, the board can decide to reject it, but then we would not have a crack sealing program completed this year.
If you're going to, if it sounds as though you're going to change the date of the crack sealing program to the spring going forward, just because it's when other municipalities do it, and the lower bid, which saves us about $8,000, would do it in the spring, why wouldn't we just wait?
Because the streets that Ed has identified are in need of the crack sealing, and to help further the life of those streets with the upcoming winter season.
Okay.
Any further comment or discussion? If not, I will ask village clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Sells. Aye. Trustee Reynolds. Aye. Trustee Shevitz.
Aye.
Trustee Satchey. Aye. Trustee Ballerine.
Okay, this motion, this resolution passes, so thank you very much. And trustee Sells, I think you have another item.
This is a first reading of an ordinance amending the village code of the Village of Riverside, Illinois, relative to the electric utility tax. The Illinois Municipal Code provides the village with the authority to collect a tax for those consuming electricity within the corporate limits of Riverside. The tax billed to residents for electric is dependent upon their usage rather than being a percentage of the total cost of an individual bill. The tiered rates are based upon the consumption of kilowatt hours used within a given month. Due to the rate being based on usage, tax receipts have seasonal variability as well. In the summer months, electric utility tax increases based on air conditioner usage. In the cooler months, consumption decreases. As residents begin to transition to green technologies currently available and make changes to behaviors to be green, the village can presume that the revenue derived from electric utility taxes will begin to decrease as well. Electric utility taxes are billed and collected by ComEd, then remitted to the village on the 20th of every month for the prior month's billing. Prior to 2009, the electric utility tax rates were capped. Currently, the Illinois Municipal Code allows the village to adjust the current rates to the maximum, which varies based on the respective kilowatt usage per month tier. However, on average, the increase is 5.37%. These rates were last adjusted by the village in 2004. So this ordinance would increase the village's current electric utility rates on an average by 5.37%. And we have a chart attached here that shows the various tiers based on kilowatt usage per month. And this is a first reading for discussion only.
I think it's also important to say that the annual increase for households is $3.61, so about 40 cents a month.
Any further? We also discussed this when we had our budget meetings also, this topic. So is there any further discussion on this? This is noted in our materials that this will be placed on the consent agenda at the next meeting. Everybody aware of that?
Actually, I was against this, so I would prefer it not be placed on the consent agenda because I will be voting against it.
I would agree with Trustee Sells in this case, being anything to do with tax, utility tax dealing with the residents. I think it should be put on the regular agenda. So anything further? If not, then we shall move on. Trustee Sells, do you have anything else?
Just one last little thing that's kind of attached to this. This went out today, but for folks who don't get this in the email, the Northern Illinois Municipal Electric Collaborative, which helped us with the aggregation, has created a website that will allow residents now to determine their actual savings based on the aggregation. You can go to www.mycomedbill.com, www.mycomedbill.com, and it'll ask you for your town, it'll ask you for your last kilowatt usage on your prior bill, and it'll tell you how much you saved, and it'll also tell you all kind of cool things you can buy with the money that you saved, like trips to Florida. So, and that's all, Mr. President.
Moving on, we I think the savings from my aggregation are substantially more than that, actually.
My bill for September was $59. I haven't seen a $59 electric bill since I moved into this town.
How are those candles working at your house?
$59, it was amazing.
Next up, Public Safety, Health, and Landscape, Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have before you a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute a contract in the amount of $445,050 with Public Safety Services, Inc., PSSI, for paramedic services in the Village of Riverside from December 15th, 2012 through December 14th, 2013. The Village of Riverside has attained paramedic personnel through a contract with Public Safety Services, Inc., and PSSI has served the Village of Riverside since 1996 and has provided high-quality firefighter-paramedic staff that are professional, competent, and compassionate to the fire department and the Village of Riverside. The recommendation of the fire chief is to approve the contract with PSSI and approved by the Village Board at the October 1st, 2012 meeting. The fire chief is seeking approval to enter into a contract for a period of 3 years with the following terms. December 15, 2012 to December 14, 2013, the amount I mentioned earlier, $445,050. The following year, an increase or a decrease to be negotiated by the parties, and in the third year, the similar increase or decrease, again, to be negotiated by the parties. So I move that we approve the resolution authorizing the village manager to enter into a 3-year contract with Public Safety Services, Inc. for paramedic services for an amount not to exceed $445,050 for the first year, followed by a negotiated price for the second and third years to be mutually agreed by both parties.
Second. So we have a motion by trustee Reynolds, a second by trustee Ballerine. Is there any discussion on this item?
I would like to acknowledge Fire Chief Kimura, who worked with PSSI to negotiate a no increase for this next fiscal year. He did work directly with them, and there was some back and forth, but he was able to get them to commit to a 0 increase for this year. So I would like to acknowledge his efforts on his part.
So acknowledged, and we had some discussion on this item during our budget discussions too. This was a very significant item for us. If I might ask, how does the agreement work if the parties are not able to reach an agreement on the rate after the first year?
The second and third year, we agreed that we can do two things. We can either go out to RFP, or we can just do a community cost-sharing study. It doesn't necessarily have to go RFP, and then at that time, if we do not come to terms, we can cut the contract at that time. So it's not like we're locked in for the second or third year.
It's really a one-year contract.
With
With agreement to attempt to agree, so it's not enforceable.
And you have reviewed the contract?
What?
You have reviewed the contract?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Chief Kimura?
We did not review the contract.
My only concern is that a contract without
This term?
I would just want, I have not seen the contract myself either, so
Yeah.
I was looking to see.
No, we
what you
were
guys-
mostly concerned about this term. I'm not, which is common in these contracts. The entities that provide the services would like to know that you're happy with them and you're going to attempt to come to some agreement. But as a legally enforceable document, the only thing that's binding is the year and the price you have in front of you.
If it makes the board comfortable, you can, I guess, approve this with the contingency that it meets a village attorney approval.
Isn't this basically, though, just extending the current
The current
contract for
contract
1
for
year?
another year.
Yeah, so why do we need to have attorney review on it?
If it just would make everyone feel
Have you reviewed
Doesn't make me feel.
previous year's contracts on it?
I think so.
Are you treating this as an,
We
I
did-
mean,
Yeah,
would
now you guys have had this since '96, so I don't think staff ever gave us anything to look at because it was just
All of the
renewing.
contracts that we've had with them have been similar, where year 2 and 3 has always been kind of negotiated.
As long as you have the right to terminate, and that's what you're saying, if you don't reach an agreement, I mean, we're not subject to some third-party arbitration or whatever, we have a right to terminate.
Right, yeah, actually, even without that, it's, you're only locked into a year as a non-home rule municipality anyway,
Good, thank you.
so.
Any further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second on this resolution on the floor. If you would please call the roll, Kathy?
Trustee Salas. Trustee Reynolds.
Aye.
Trustee Shevitz.
Aye.
Trustee Sachi. Trustee Ballerine.
And that resolution is adopted. Thank you. Next up.
Next up, this is a first reading of an ordinance amending the village code of the Village of Riverside, Illinois, relative to ambulance service fees. The current ambulance billing fee schedule does not reflect current market value for service delivery of emergency medical services. The fire department recently gathered and reviewed ambulance billing fee schedule data from neighboring municipalities located near the Village of Riverside. As a result of this research, the current ambulance billing fee schedule needs to be adjusted to reflect current market value for the delivery of paramedic-level services to the community. The proposed changes to the ambulance billing fee schedule is considered to be a better reflection of the current market. So this is only a first reading and is up for discussion.
Is there any discussion on this item? And again, this was discussed in various fashions in our budget meetings also.
So just So just raising these fees kind of still doesn't make us the highest in terms of looking at it in comparison to our neighbors. We're still gonna, we're kind of be in the middle, right, on some of the things.
That's correct. You should have received in your packet a comparison chart that we referenced in the ordinance. And pretty much, we were almost in the middle. Now we're going to be a little bit above the middle, but we're by far not the highest. Correct.
Little above average,
That's correct.
just the way we like kids to be in school.
Spoken like
Well-
a man who has no kids.
If you've asked me for my opinion, I would think we would want to do the non-resident, all three non-residents at the same price, very similar to Willow Springs. And possibly hold our residential to smaller amounts, just because residents do pay for, ambulance service in their taxes. I mean, that's why they pay taxes here. Just a thought.
What is your thought again, Joe?
I would raise the non-resident to say even across, like 1,000 all the way across, instead of the graduated up for the basic life support and the ALS and the ALS2, just 1,000 across the board. And, smaller bumps to residents, maybe, instead of a $150 bump at the ALS and a $100 bump, just $50 bumps across the board. And I don't know how many non-residents versus residents. Yeah, I would assume it's a lot more residents than non-residents.
Yeah. Can you comment on how many non-resident calls do we get?
Well, you should have in your packet also is a calendar year comparison for 2010, 2011, and the first 6 months of 2012 will actually break down the 6 various rates of ALS, ALS2, and BLS, both for resident and non-resident.
Surprisingly amount of non-residents. Almost, if I'm adding correctly, it's more.
The only comment I would have in regards to separating or distinguishing between a BLS and an ALS obviously is the level of care, and there's only one municipality has that across the board versus there should be some kind of variance between the level of care that's provided for basic life support versus advanced life support, which is the ALS 1 and ALS 2 rate.
Well, since it's
So
pretty.
what I had proposed is to make ALS 1 and 2 the same rate because, as you can tell in the comparison chart, we didn't really have a whole lot of ALS 2 rates on there. And just for simplicity reasons, we would just make ALS 1 and 2 combined as far as the rate, whether it's non-resident or resident.
Chief, is there any difference in collecting these fees, depending upon whether it's a resident or non-resident?
Regards to, we just go to the billing company and they take care of whether it's resident or non-resident.
I know, what are the results?
Most of the ambulance fees are passed along to your insurance carrier, and then whatever depending on your plan coverage, your deductible and that, will determine what your out-of-pocket costs are. I think we've been pretty good with collection of ambulance fees, and the ones that haven't, as the chief has said, we do then send to collection,
And that's been successful.
for the most part.
So trustee Ballerini, do you still want
I would
to,
like to increase the non-resident fees, at least the ALS and the ALS2 to be the same, and even the basic life support, increase that a little bit to offset and possibly hold our resident ambulance fees to be the same, since it's 50-50. 50-50 between non-resident and resident. I think our residents, I would rather collect more money from residents that don't live in our village, that don't pay our taxes, than people that live in our village that pay hefty taxes. Just as.
Can I follow up on that, just a more general question? I mean, the rationale for doing this at all, from the description, is that it does not reflect current market value. what does that mean? Are we saying that just because other people are charging more, therefore we're going to charge more? Or does this have to do with us actually recouping
Recouping
costs?
actual costs to provide some of this service. And even with the changes that we're proposing, we don't capture all of our costs back.
And that's it all? That's basic life support and advanced? I mean, I take it there's a variance.
Is there an area where we're not recouping more than others?
I have to look at it.
Okay.
Well, I didn't do an analysis of each specific 6 different categories as far as a percentage, but
Yeah, I think Joe's point is well taken, and I would agree with him that we should raise the resident fees slightly, but I would like to see the non-resident fees raised to a point where, Peter, you feel like we're recouping our costs based on historic calls, even though I know they vary quite a bit along 2010, 2011, and so far this year in 2012.
So any further comments? We have 2 trustees who are in favor of raising the non-resident recovery and lowering the resident recovery.
Not lower, I think just making it smaller.
Excuse me, you're correct. Not increasing it quite as much, but increasing the non-resident recovery beyond what's here and lowering the amount for the residents from what's shown on this proposal.
I agree with that as well.
Trustee Reynolds? Trustee Sachi? Okay, so then if you would work, Peter, would Fire Chief Kimura come back to us at our meeting on the 15th of October with some revised rates here, and then that would be the second reading for this matter.
Just to follow up on what Joe's saying, I mean, my sense would be that the resident increases, I mean, we should work to keep those as low as possible. I mean, because we know who is usually using these ambulance services, and they're the least capable of paying the increases. So I think we should really work hard at maintaining low rates for those.
Anything further? Who's, Trustee Reynolds, you were up on.
That's all I have.
You were on the clock, I should say. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Moving on, River Parks and Recreation, Trustee Ballerine. Building, Planning and Zoning, Trustee Sussman. Peter, are you aware of any matters? And Public Relations, Economic Development, Open Government, Trustee Shevitz.
2 things. Wednesday is the last farmer's market of the 2012 season. It was an incredibly successful season. Thank you to our clerk, Kathy Haley, as well as all the other volunteers who helped out this year. And hopefully we'll have a report at the meeting after this one from somebody from the committee. And then as well, Thursday night, EDC meeting, 7:30 in this room.
Thank you, Trustee Shevitz. That concludes the reports from the trustees. Yes.
Mark reminded me one thing in the thank you range. I don't know how many people got to go to the car show on Sunday. It was amazing. When I was there, I went.
300 cars.
Yeah.
Last year, of course, it's dependent on the weather. So like last year, the weather was threatening, only 80 cars showed up. The year before that, though, which had set a record, there was 260. But yesterday, the cars were I mean, they were squeezed in so tight you could hardly appreciate one.
It was
It was
it knocked
over
you out. It was
over
great.
300. I don't know what the exact count was.
Yeah, when I was there, it was 297, and I saw Rick Ravella, who deserves a huge thanks from this town for constantly doing this. I think he told me they actually had 350 signed up. So, but it was the most cars we've ever had in a car show, and it was wonderful. So congratulations to them.
It was some nice cars.
His entire staff at Riverside Garage and the Chamber. It gives an opportunity not only for that event, but Olmsted Society, Chamber of Commerce have tables set up. Some of our other organizations, the vendors are there providing food and beverage, so it's an opportunity across the board for to showcase our village. So.
Last Wednesday, the Channel 11 was in town filming check fees at Choo Choo, which was really exciting.
Did you pick up the check?
I
didn't. I got to go, I ate. That was very good.
Okay,
Very good.
thank you. Next, we shall adjourn for an executive session. This session will be to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. We will not reconvene in an open session, and we will not take any action at our executive session. So with that, I would ask for a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session. So motion by trustee Reynolds, a second by trustee Ballerine. Kathy, if you would please call the roll.
Trustee Sells. Aye. Trustee Shevitz. Trustee Reynolds. Trustee Sachi. Trustee Valerie.
Thank you, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:15 for executive session.